Hi, everyone. Welcome to Life Between Flights, the podcast about small business, travel industry, and everything in between. I am your host, Cecily North Rudo, certified travel advisor and owner of Traveling North Travel Agency. Today, we are going to do something a little bit different. This is going to be our first trip review, and I'm starting with the most recent because it's still in my head. So today I'm going to be talking about the Celebrity Xcel. My husband and I traveled on the preview sailing in November of 2025. And so I'm just going to talk about my experience and what I thought about the whole thing. This was not a sponsored cruise. This was very much I paid out of pocket for this. And it was actually, they announced it back in late April, early May 2025. And so I actually booked it on Mother's Day. So it was my Mother's Day gift to myself. But I had never sailed on Celebrity before. I had toured, we had done a ship inspection of the Edge when we did a fam trip in Seattle over the summer. And touring the Edge made me super excited for the Xcel. I love Royal Caribbean. I have sailed on Royal many times, and I absolutely love their products. So knowing that Celebrity is their sister company and is just a little bit more of an elevated experience, and knowing too that it was a preview sailing, so that it was going to be not as busy, it wasn't going to be as at max capacity, was also just very appealing to me. My husband doesn't really like, the big crowds and waiting in line and all of that stuff. So I was like, well, this will be kind of a great thing for him as well. So we, as always, I had booked a guaranteed balcony concierge or guaranteed veranda concierge level. And then we actually didn't get our room assignment until to I don't even think it was the week before. It might've been like 5 days before. And I had actually done a bid to upgrade to an Aqua Class room when the bidding came out. And once we got our room assignment, we were literally on the 12th deck, and we were right below the spa. So we were at the front of the ship, and I had this bid in for an Aqua Class. And when I was looking online to see what Aqua Class rooms are still available, they were on the complete opposite side of the ship. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and cancel the bid for the upgrade. And we ended up using the money we saved on that for the spa pass. And because I fell in love with spas on the Disney Wish. And so I was like, I really want to buy the spa pass. And since we were literally right under the spa, it was the most convenient thing for us. It was awesome. And then we also had the concierge. Which most people, the concierge for us, we did use them for booking one excursion because we had waited too long to decide on what we wanted to do with the one day we were in Cozumel. But otherwise, our room steward was amazing. We did get our sparkling wine in the room on the last night when we were getting ready for dinner. We had the canapes in our room every single night. We had the pillow menu, so I did ask for a body pillow, which was also magical. Yeah, our steward was great. The concierge was great. We just didn't really fully use it. We did have in our room, there were 2 umbrellas and there were binoculars, which the binoculars were not like, my husband should have just brought his own. But we did have them. So we did actually get to see, because there were a lot of ships out that were kind of sailing somewhat close to us. And so it was really nice to be able to use the binoculars to go check out what other ships were sailing with us. So we first flew into Fort Lauderdale the night before, which I highly recommend to every client. You always want to fly in the night, at least the day before, for a cruise. And we sailed at the Fairfield, the Fort Lauderdale Airport Fairfield, which they do offer an airport shuttle, but they didn't tell us how long the wait was going to be. So we actually ended up Ubering to the hotel, which thankfully, it was like a 3-minute drive, and our driver was awesome. He was so funny. But then actually, as we were pulling up in the Uber, the shuttle was pulling up. But we had waited so long at that point, and I was like, it's fine. It was also getting kind of late, and we were hungry. There's a Wendy's right in the parking lot. So we walked over to the Wendy's and got some food and came back to the room. And then in the morning, they do offer a shuttle. Currently, it is $20 a person to get to the port with their shuttle, and it only goes at certain times. I think it was like 10:15, 11:15, and then like 1 something. And we needed to get to the ship earlier than that. So we actually scheduled an Uber for the next morning. So our boarding time was at noon. We actually got there a little bit earlier. I think we actually ended up getting to the port around 11:15. And the funny thing was we haven't sailed out of that specific port before. We have been in that port, but not that specific number. And so our driver got us up there, and literally it wasn't an overwhelming amount of people because we were there so early. So the cars were like, we pulled up and all of the guys holding or grabbing the luggage, like took our bags, like literally just started walking. Like we couldn't even tip them. Like we were prepared to, and they took we only had one bag. And so they took it and they were already helping other people. So we went and took some pictures outside because the ship was like right there. And then, the employees started guiding us in. They did have a photo opportunity to take, like they had a balloon arch and and I'll share that on social media. They had like a little welcoming thing, but we didn't want to wait in line for our pictures. So we got on the escalator and we went upstairs and just went through security. They scanned us in and scanned our boarding passes, and we didn't have to wait at all. They're like, welcome aboard. And we walked right on. We went on the gangway and just went right up to the ship. They were just starting to let people on when we were there. So we didn't have to wait at all. There was a handful of people that were, I think they were probably suites people that came on board. So like right before us. So we got on the ship because it was a preview sailing and it was the first one. Rooms were ready immediately. So because we were concierge, we got to do the embarkation lunch in the main dining. So I believe we went up to our rooms and got our cards because dinner or lunch hadn't started quite yet. So we had gone up to our room, checked out the room, which even though we had been assigned an obstructed view, it was only obstructed because the neighbors next to us it's the room where the balcony goes out a little bit further. But truly I thought we had a great view. Even though, yes, technically it was obstructed, I would not complain about that room at all. It was perfect for us. So we checked that out for a little bit. We talked to our room steward for just a second. And then we went down and had lunch in the Tuscan restaurant, the Italian restaurant, which the lunch was the exact same thing as what we had on the Edge in Seattle. So it was everything that I expected it to be. Admittedly, I am a very picky eater. I am not allergic to anything, but there's a lot of things I just don't eat. So I'm always really nervous. And that was when we had our lunch on the Edge. What I was really nervous about was the food on the Xcel because it's just a little bit elevated in the main dining and everything else. And so lunch was great. The service was great. I really like that the Tuscan restaurant, just the decor and everything was just very enjoyable. The staff were great. Towards the end, like waiting for dessert, that took a really long time, but that was because they were getting so many new people in. So I saw our waiter was very busy, and really we were not in a hurry to get anywhere. So after that, we went and checked in our muster station, which was right next to the club. And then after that, we went upstairs and we had gotten the classic beverage package. We did go to one of the bars in the ship. That was probably I think that might have been the first place we went to actually before we went up to our room. And then we went outside and wandered around for a little bit. We went to another bar. I think it's the Mast Bar. And we were just kind of walking the ship and seeing. We went and we had brought our swimsuits on board with us instead of putting it in a suitcase. So we changed. And we went, they have some infinity pools up on the Sunset, like back by the Sunset Bar. So we were in there for a little bit, even though it was like kind of chilly and it did end up raining. But the infinity pools were really, really fun. But then there were some kids kids are totally allowed in there, but some kids came over without any supervision. And so we left after that. And then it rained for a little bit and a lot of people kind of went indoors, but we stayed outside, just enjoying our drinks. And my husband just wanted to stay in the pool in the rain, which was fine. But then it cleared out and then we finally got to take off and we actually got to see the Disney Destiny because it was also doing one last preview sailing before the inaugural. So it actually went out right after us. So it was really cool to have two brand new ships literally in the same port right across from each other. And then I will say, so this was my second sailing going across the Gulf, and it was not the best weather. The thing I kept reminding myself was, what would it be like if the weather was beautiful? The ship was beautiful in itself. As I tell clients, it's very spa-like. It's very relaxing. It doesn't have the water slides and the climbing walls and the zip lines and the go-karts and all of that stuff. There was the main pool, which we had pretty much a hot tub to ourselves most of the time because of the weather. But they did they did some fun games and stuff out on the pool deck. So we watched that for a little bit one day. They did have a whole bunch of activities going on. The ship has 2 cruise directors, which we saw them out and about several times. The first night, one of the cruise directors was actually doing like some dance. I wouldn't call it a class, but like leading some dancing down in the martini bar one night, which was really fun. The entertainment was phenomenal. We saw a little bit of we didn't go into the bazaar and see those shows, but the main stage shows we saw. The first one, I appreciate the artistry of the first one. The thing I didn't get was that it's supposed to be 1920s themed, but they were singing songs from the 80s, and I was like, yeah, that kind of takes me out of it. But they did have a tap dancing scene, and I do have a history in tap dance and love it. And so that part, I was like completely wowed because the ship was pretty rocky most of the time, and he was dancing on this little tiny platform that was very high up in the air, and so that part was very impressive. I believe that show was called Take Two, and I mean the performers were great, the dancing was great. It was just the theming for me it was just a little weird for me. We did see the magician one night, he was awesome. We did see the comedian on the last night, he was also great. Yeah, the entertainment. We didn't stay for the show on the third night. We saw a little tiny bit of it, but it was in the 70s disco era of whatever that show was, and I was like, I can't. I'm not going to stay for this. But we did go into the club one night. There is a speakeasy, which I won't go to too much detail about, but that was very, very fun. If you at all are into like Great Gatsby, 1920s kind of stuff, that is the place that you want to be. That was definitely a fun, and it's like Oga's Cantina, how Oga's used to be, where you could only go for an hour, and they do kick people out. We did see people getting kicked out who have overstayed their welcome, but that was a fun little cool place that not everybody knew about, and so that was pretty fun. I am not a drinker, and so I did end up getting, all of their drinks were very, had cute names and very themed names and all of that stuff. I can't remember what I got. One of them was called the Mary Pickford, which I greatly appreciate. But yeah, it was just it's a fun vibe. And then what else did we do? We ate in the steakhouse one night, which I'm always a fan of eating this in the steakhouse on whatever ship we're on. So that was a very enjoyable meal. The one thing I will say is that whoever designed that restaurant did not think about the wait staff and having to coordinate serving people, because we were right next to the window, which was great. It was already dark, so it's not like we could see anything. And the problem is that the way that the tables are, it's like tables for 2 right up by the window. So there's a table for 2, and then right next to it is a table for 2. And the light fixtures above these tables, I think, were meant to be above the tables, but because of the way they had them set up, if the 2 tables together to seat 4 were actually put together, it would make more sense. But they don't have it set up that way. So our poor waiter all of the waiters had to keep ducking under these lights to serve us and hand us our menus and fill our drinks and all of that stuff. And I was like, yeah, whoever designed this did not have the wait staff in mind at all. That would drive me nuts. But the food was amazing. Our waiter was awesome. He was just so enjoyable. He very much looked like a bigger version of Tom Holland. But he was so nice and so accommodating. And I kept telling him, I was like, I'm so sorry that you have to deal with these lights. But he's like, yeah, I've kind of gotten used to it now. But the steakhouse that was probably my favorite meal out of the entire ship. We did eat in the buffet every day for breakfast. We did eat a lunch there one day, which the options for the meals in the buffet were amazing. It was always really busy. It wasn't hard necessarily to find a table, but we ended up eating at the back of the ship more often than actually eating in the buffet. But the food options and everything in the buffet were amazing. I was very, very happy with all of the options. They had a build-your-own caprese bar, which caprese is one of my favorite foods in the entire world. So I was very excited about that. On the last day, they had a chocolate fountain, and they had marshmallows and fruit and cookies and all kinds of things. And the crew member that was helping with the chocolate fountain, I was like, can I get a marshmallow? And she's like, just one? She's like, or do you want one of the really big ones? And I was like, well, I guess I'll take 2 of the smaller ones. But that was delightful. We did eat in the Italian restaurant. We ate in the Greek restaurant. We ate in the Cosmopolitan restaurant. The one restaurant we did not eat in was the French one. But the food was always really good. I was always really happy with what I had ordered and was very thankful that there was like the theming, like the themed meals that you could choose from, but also you could just order from their normal, their classic menu in any restaurant. And so that was always really great. The drinks were great. Another thing that I haven't talked about yet. So our room itself, we had a concierge veranda, obstructed view balcony. Like I said, the obstructed view was not a problem for us. I did not have a problem with it. I thought our view was great. And then we had, it has the standard, we had the two beds together. We had our table and the chairs and the couch. The one thing I really liked was that I felt like there was a lot of storage for just the two of us. We were able to like unpack everything, put our suitcase under the bed, and I felt like we had enough room to move around and also enough storage. Like I could hang up everything that I needed to. They could have done with a few more hangers, but whatever. And then we had plenty of drawers. There was even like the cabinet where the umbrellas and stuff, like you could still put stuff in there. There was plenty of storage in the bathroom. The first night when we were getting ready for dinner, I was looking for the hairdryer and I could not find one. And so I was like, is that something that I need to request? And the one place I did not look was there's a drawer in the bathroom. And I thought I had tried opening it and it wasn't, and maybe because it was new. But the next day I asked our steward and he was like, oh, let me show you. And he opened the drawer just fine. So I was like, yeah, that's on me. But then there's the vanity and there's the refrigerator and all of that stuff. So, I mean, it's a pretty standard room if you've been on any cruise ship, but it was, it's the perfect size for us. Plenty of storage, plenty of area to move around. There was just one outlet on one side of the bed. The far side of the bed had an outlet and plugs and things. And then on the vanity, they have more like USB plugs and things like that, which was great. I always just have my like multi-charger thing that I bring, but we don't bring anything really above and beyond that. There are like the little lights on the bed, which was great because we both like to read, but we didn't want to have like the main lights on. There's also with the infinite veranda, which I will say after years of learning about the infinite veranda, it was not as impressive as I thought it was going to be. I do appreciate it. I like that we could have, because usually we want to have either the balcony doors open or have the veranda open. So we were able, every time we were in the room, we would have that rolled down, even with it being stormy. The thing I really do like is because it was stormy and it was rainy, we could still have that open and we were not getting hit with the rain and everything because there was like a structure above us. So we weren't being pelted with rain and all of that stuff, and we could still keep the window open. The one thing I don't like about it is that if you're sitting in the chairs as if you were like, let's say you're sitting on your balcony without the infinite veranda, you can see. If you have your window down, and especially when it's been raining and stuff and it's just dirty, like it's nothing about the crew or anything. It's just the reality of it raining. You couldn't really see out if you were sitting in the chairs. So most of the time, if I wanted to see out, I would just be standing there looking out. And then they have like the blackout curtains, which was great. And then because the ship was rocking so much, there was definitely creaking, which I was like, it's also a new ship. Like this is just what happens with ships, especially when it's stormy, like things are going to be creaking. And I found out on the last night through the Facebook group for the cruise was because people were all having complaints about the creaking and whatever. And we use like white noise and stuff. So it all just kind of blended into our white noise. But there's actually doors to the veranda. And so people are like, if you've closed those doors, it doesn't creak as much. And I was like, oh, well, I wish we'd known that on the first night. But overall, our room, the bed was great. I loved having my body pillow. And again, I sleep the best in my life on a cruise ship, even when it's rocking. Yeah, I will say out of all of the cruises I've been on, this one was probably the more consistently bad weather and more rocky than the other one that we had bad weather, but we only had bad weather for like 1.5 days. So it was only rocky the first night. This one, it was rocky like pretty much the whole time. And the captain kept coming on and saying, we're going to get out of the bad weather and everything, but it just was like, we just couldn't get out of it. So 2 more things. One, we did an excursion while we were in Cozumel, and we were in Cozumel. It was a long port day, but we went to the Cusa Beach Club and we did it through Celebrity. And so the transportation was provided. We did the VIP service, which was a smaller group of us. It's on the north side of the beach is their VIP area. And so we got drinks when we got there. We got it was like they gave us quesadillas and some chips and queso and salsa, I think, when we got there. And then we got coupons for like the premium drinks, but then other drinks were included. And also because it was stormy, we didn't get to enjoy, like they have paddle boards and they have kayaks and they have all of that stuff. Because of the wind, they weren't allowing anybody to go out any further than like just going through to their little beach. So we didn't get to do the paddle boarding or the kayaking or anything that we had planned on doing. But we did walk the entire property. They have a pier that you can walk out to. So we did, the water was beautiful. It was really a beautiful day. The temperature was great. It didn't rain on us or anything like that. They did warn us that they have iguanas and birds and coatis and things like that on the property. So my husband was out in the ocean and I was reading my book, and there was a group of people in the chairs in front of me. And they saw this coati coming, and of course everybody's like, don't touch it, don't pet it. Yes, we know they're cute, but leave them alone. And he came over and stole someone's quesadilla, and he was a very, very happy little animal. I was like, yeah, I would absolutely take one of those home if I could, but I know that he's very dangerous, and so I'm just going to let him run away with his quesadilla. But we did see a few of them later on, and they are very, very cute little raccoon weasel things. But otherwise, I like the Coosa Beach Club. It's been rebranded. I can't remember what it was before this exact moment, but I highly, highly recommend them for just if you just want to go lounge on a beach. It's way more secluded. It's about a 20-minute ride from the pier, from the Celebrity Pier, but it was just it was exactly what I wanted in an excursion, in just a beach day, to just lounge and, drink some drinks and read my book and take some pictures of the water. I don't like getting in the ocean, and so I put my foot in, and that was enough for me. But to be able to walk down to the pier and back, and then I think when it's busier, they have like shows and entertainers, and they do kind of more things. They did have a tequila tasting, which we kind of had to be rushed through because other people wanted to do it and they had to leave to get on their ship. So, but that was like, again, I'm not a drinker, but I was like, well, I'll go to the tasting, and then some of it was actually enjoyable. I wouldn't buy a bottle, but it was an enjoyable experience. And then they did have like a restaurant and other things where you could get more food, and lots of bars and all of that stuff. So yeah, they're going to be doing more. There's going to be, there's a water park on property that they are in the process of refurbishing and doing a whole bunch of things. And then they also have, because it had been raining, they couldn't open up. They have an ATV trail where you can rent ATVs. You can also rent bicycles, but they didn't have any of that open because it was so muddy. So we really didn't get to see as much of it as what's available there. But it was a really, really great just excursion. I highly recommend going to the Coosa Beach Club. And then also on the ship, the highlight for me out of the entire ship was the martini bar. Again, I am not a drinker. I did not order a single martini, but the crew at the martini bar, these bartenders, they are the most fun to watch. And one of the most enjoyable things that I can ever do in my life is people watch. And the first night, because I knew they did a little bit of a show, but we didn't know like what exactly that meant. And we ended up catching it on the last night just by accident. We happened to be walking we knew we wanted to go to the martini bar and watch them, but it was so enjoyable. I think there's 5 or 6 of them, and it's very much like cocktail. Like they're juggling and they're doing all the tricks with the glasses and the drinks, and they're pouring all of the things, and they're doing all of the stuff. And it was just so much fun. And to see everybody else, getting their drinks and how it was presented to them. And they would be throwing the ice in the air, and they'd be throwing drinks in the air, and, doing all of the things. And I tried to get some video of it, but none of it's really, really great. It certainly does not capture exactly how amazing they are. But I truly could have spent every single night just watching them in the martini bar. The bartenders were just so enjoyable. They were absolutely the highlight for me. We saw a lot of the shows. We ate a lot of food. We tried all of the places. We did the coffee bar. We walked through the art gallery. We did not actually gamble in the casino this time, which is very unlike me. I really, really wanted to, and then we just ended up hanging out at the martini bar and never really making it to the casino. Did spend a lot of time in the spa. We did have the spa package. The spa, it was busy, but for those of us that are, my husband up until now has been working nights, so we are much more like the night owls. And with people going to early dining and stuff, we had the spa all to ourselves basically from 4:30 on until we would go and get ready for dinner. And with our room being right there, it was enjoyable. I got to sit on my little heated chair and be a little lizard every single day. And I love that spa because they have so many different rooms to go into. And so there's the dry sauna, there's the Turkish hammam, there's the wet sauna, there's a salt room, there's the rainfall, which is just like showers, but they're like different temperatures and different lighting and things like that. And then there's the hydrotherapy room, which is basically a giant hot tub with chairs in it. And that room would have been way more enjoyable had the ship not been rocking so much. The thing to me, like, I don't know how other people do it, and maybe I'm just more overweight than I think I am, and I'm just more buoyant, but like trying to lay on these chairs within the hot tub in the hydrotherapy thing, like I just kept floating, and when like it wasn't relaxing because I was trying to keep myself on the chair and I just couldn't do it. Like I just kept kind of sliding off and floating away with the rocking of the ship. But the spa itself is just, we didn't do any of the treatments, but there were several people there getting massages and all of that stuff. And then there were women in there getting their hair done for dinner, and there were people getting their nails done and all of that stuff. There's also a very cute barber shop, all of that stuff, like really anything that you could need to do on the ship. It was all right there. We did go out on the vitamin D deck a couple times. There was one time where it wasn't quite as windy, so I actually did end up falling asleep out there on one of the couches one day, which was pretty enjoyable. But it is just another really nice, tranquil place to be when you kind of need to get away from everybody else, especially when it's like at full capacity. Yeah, the spa was just wonderful. But overall, I would absolutely do Celebrity again. The ship was beautiful. The crew were amazing. I don't think we ever had a bad crew interaction at all. I was really worried about the food, and I loved all of the food I had. I could have spent all day, every day in the buffet or the steakhouse. The steakhouse was also just amazing. And I thought our room was wonderful. The room location was great. I think I would absolutely go back on the ship. I would just hope for better weather. That was the only thing really, was just the weather was just what made it a little bit more difficult. And I just kept thinking, like, being in the hot tub and we did on the last night stay in the solarium was always pretty busy. On the last night, it was emptying out because people were getting ready for dinner. And we knew they were also coming to start like cleaning and getting ready for the next people coming on the next day. But we did hang out in the solarium and the hot tub in there for a little bit. And then my husband got in the pool, and then he'd get back in the hot tub. But we were the only ones in there at that point, which was also really enjoyable. Oh, the other thing I will talk about is the magic carpet. So again, another thing when you hear about Celebrity, or every time, our celebrity reps are like, the magic carpet, you have to see the magic carpet. So the magic carpet is a bar on the side of the ship. So if you see the ships and you see the big orange thing on the side of the ship, that is the magic carpet. The magic carpet is a bar, but when they tender in ports where they don't actually have, like, you can't actually walk off the ship and you have to take a tender, that's how you tender, is from the magic carpet. So it is multifunctional. It is an amazing view. Again, if the weather had been better and not so cold, the magic carpet is an amazing place to sit and enjoy the views when you're sailing. Enjoy the sunset. We sat there for a while watching the sunset, and then we ended up going up to the sunset bar and watching the rest of it from up there. But it was, again, the crew were great. Most of the time we were out there and nobody else was out there because the weather was so bad. But it was definitely, it's just a really cool, unique space where you're out over the water and just has amazing views. And then also the sunset bar. We did not spend too much time up at the sunset bar. It was always pretty busy. And again, with the weather being the way it was, if it had been perfect weather, that would be another place that I would go to, literally every night to watch the sunset, because it was just the perfect, so many little seating areas, so many little nooks, little places, and also places for groups to gather and meet up and just hang out at the end of the day and get a drink before dinner. That part was, there were just so many beautiful spaces to just sit and relax. And the bazaar also is sort of a redone concept of Eden. And we didn't spend a whole bunch of time back there. We did walk through there, but we didn't get a drink or anything. But walking to the bazaar was really, really fun. And it's a great way when they're doing more ports, and they're going to highlight all the ports that they're going to on that cruise. And yeah, that was also it's a very unique space. We just didn't spend a whole lot of time there. The one other thing that I would talk about is that I'm a big merch person, and I can be suckered into buying things on the ship. And this time, the archivist in me died when I saw their new setup for their shop, and they literally have a museum on the ship. I was so excited. The archivist in me was so excited when I saw previews for what they were doing, and it is the history of Celebrity Cruises on display. They have such unique items. I did take pictures of them, but I can't remember anything that was there right now. But it was just all of that kind of stuff, like the history of cruise lines. I'm a sucker for it. And just the history of travel in general. The fact that they were highlighting the history of Celebrity Cruises with this brand new, the biggest ever ship, it just made me so happy. And I think a lot of people may pass by it, but for those of you that love history, for those museum, library, archive people, if you are ever on the ship, please check it out, because it is just an enjoyable space. It is beautifully designed. You get to see fun little models of the ships and everything, but then also you just get to see the history of Celebrity Cruises. So I applaud the crew, the staff that put that together, because it was truly just a delight for me. But then their little gift shop is there where you can buy all of the celebrity merch. I did end up buying a Spirit jersey, and I did end up buying a Christmas ornament, because that's the thing I collect is Christmas ornaments. I also collect shot glasses, but I didn't do that this time. But we did get an ornament, and I did get a Spirit jersey. I wish they had just slightly different variety in what they had to offer for merch. I did see a lot of people, they had one that was it was more like the architectural design of the ship. I did really enjoy that shirt as well. And then they had hats, and they had Stanleys, and they had even like the mini Stanleys, which is like a shot. I don't know what you put in those mini teeny tiny Stanleys, but they're very cute. And then they had, the magnets and all of the other things. I think it was more, I don't know. I just wish there had been one other kind of t-shirt design, because I probably would have preferred to get a t-shirt over another Spirit jersey. But it didn't quite, the merch didn't quite speak to me as much as I was hoping it would. I felt the same way on the Disney Wish as well, but because I love all that stuff. I love remembering my trips once I come home. I don't know. I wish that they had something different, whatever that means. I know that's not helpful, but yeah, that was kind of how I felt about it. So yeah, I think those are kind of all of my thoughts on the Celebrity Xcel for now. It is absolutely a beautiful ship. The crew is amazing. I highly recommend hanging out at the Martini Bar at night, at least one night. Definitely check out the Speakeasy and enjoying the club and enjoying all of the food. The Sunset Bar is beautiful. The Magic Carpet is so enjoyable. And the shows were amazing. Just all around, just a really, really enjoyable cruise. I'm so glad that we got to go and enjoy it, because it truly was. Even with the bad weather, it was really one of my favorite cruises I've been on, and I highly recommend checking out Celebrity and checking out the Xcel as an option, because it is just a premium experience for sure. With that, I will sign off for today. So safe travels, and may your luggage follow you wherever you may go. Today's episode of Life Between Flights was sponsored by me, Traveling North, produced by me and edited by Nomad Creations. Please check out the show notes for referral links, discount codes, and more resources that I've talked about in this episode. You can also follow along on our social media on Facebook and Instagram at Life Between Flights Pod. If you want help planning your next adventure, you can always check me out at travelingnorthagency.com. If you have any questions, ideas, or would like to sponsor this podcast, you can email us at lifebetweenflightspod@gmail.com.